A pleasant day to each and everyone. I will be talking about assessment of learning outcomes for students and for teachers. For students who wanted to become a teacher. First, we have to take a look on course mapping. What is a course map? A course map is a visual overview of all the components of a course. What to do is to list each of the student learning outcomes for the course. From the student learning outcomes, let what assignment or activities have been designed to address that particular outcome. This is the center of instruction that helps both the teacher and student understand what to expect of the course. So in this matrix, course mapping matrix, we have there know, want, learn, how, and so on. So we have to list what the student already know, then what they want to know, then in the column learn, what they learned, how they learned it, and why there's a need for learning it. The shift to educational focus from outcome to learning outcome. We have here process, student, and the teacher. So in this matrix, we could see the difference. Shifting before and under process, it's all pouring in. The mind of the students is like a pail that the teacher will pour and water. But today, in the present time, it is no longer applicable. We have to draw out information from the student and we have to process what they have. Then the student, before they are just a passive recipient, they will accept what the teacher will give to them. No longer today, because students today must already be an active participant. They have to participate in the discussion, and so that the teacher before was the sole provider, but at the present time is already a facilitator. Outcome-based education, matching intention with accomplishment. So the change in the educational perspective is what is called outcomes-based education, OBE, which has three characteristics. First is the student centered. So the student is at the center of the process by focusing on what the student's learning outcome. The second is the faculty. So it is faculty driven. That is, it encourages faculty responsibility for teaching, assessing program outcomes, and motivating participation from the students. Third, it is meaningful. That is, it provides data to guide the teacher in making valid and continuing improvement in instruction and assessment activities. So what is an outcome-based education? Outcome-based education is a process. This is a process that involves first, restructuring of curriculum, assessment and reporting practices in education to reflect the achievement of high-order learning and mastery rather than the accumulation of course credits, according to Tucker of 2004. Thus, the primary aim of OBE is to facilitate desired changes within the learners by increasing knowledge, developing skills, and or possibly influencing attitudes, values, and judgment. Outcome-based education embodies the idea that the best way to learn is to first determine what needs to be achieved. So in all our undertakings, the first thing to do is to set the goal or the objective. So once the end goal or product or outcome has been determined, the strategies, the processes, techniques, and other ways and means can be put into place in order to achieve the goal. How to implement outcome-based education on a subject or course level? First, we have the identification of the educational objectives of the subject or a course. What is educational objective? So educational objectives are the broad goals that a subject or the course expect to achieve and defining in general terms the knowledge, the skills, and the attitude that the teacher will help the student to attain. The objectives are stated from the point of view of the teacher, such as to develop, to provide, to enhance, or to inculcate, and others. Second, listing of learning outcomes specified for each subject or course objective. How it is stated. Since subjects or course objectives are broadly stated, they do not provide detailed guide to be teachable and measurable. Learning outcomes are stated as concrete active verbs like to demonstrate, to explain, to differentiate, to illustrate, and other verbs. A good source of learning outcome statement is in the taxonomy of educational objectives by Benjamin Bloom, or we call it as Bloom taxonomy of educational objectives, which is grouped into three. First is cognitive. Cognitive, also called knowledge, refers to mental skills such as remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and synthesizing, and or creating. Second is the psychomotor. This is referred to as skills. Includes manual or physical skills which proceed from mental activities and range from the simplest to the complex, such as observing, imitating, practicing, adapting, and innovating. And the third is affective. This is known as attitude. This refers to growth in feelings or emotions from the simplest behavior to the most complex, such as receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and internalizing. Drafting outcomes assessment procedure. How to determine the degree of which the students are attaining the desired learning outcomes. So this procedure will enable the teacher to determine the degree of which the students attained, what they desired, what outcome they wanted to have. It identifies for every outcome the data that will be gathered, which will guide the selection of the assessment tools to be used and what point assessment will be done. What tools of assessment is used here. The outcome of education focuses classroom instruction on the skills and competencies that students must demonstrate when they exit. So there are two types of outcomes. First is the immediate outcome, and the second is the deferred outcome. So what are they? So in this matrix, we could see the types of outcomes in education, the immediate outcomes, competencies, or the skills acquired upon completion of a subject, a grade level, a segment of a program or program itself, and the deferred outcome, the ability to apply cognitive, psychomotor, and affective skills, competencies in various situations from completion of a subject or a course. So example of immediate outcome, we have this objective. Ability to communicate both in writing and in spelling. So competency in writing and competency in speaking. Second example, problem-solving skills in mathematics. So this is the skills desired is solving problems. And the third example here is identifying object. So the student could develop the skills to identify an object. While deferred outcome, examples, we have success in professional practice. So deferred because it could be achieved only upon the completion of a subject or a course. When they will graduate, they could be able to be successful in their professional practice. Another example is job promotion. When they get a job, they could be promoted. And another example is getting an awards. So with the various competencies that they gain when they are still in school, they could put it in action towards their job, so they might could be given an award. So this is a sample of educational objectives and learning outcomes in Araling Panlipunan K-12. So educational objective, we have first, pagbibigay sa mga mag-aaral ng kaalaman at pag-unawa tungkol sa tao, kapaligiran at lipunan. So this is a cognitive objective. While the learning outcome here, this is just an example, no? So nailarawan ang sariling buhay simula sa pagsilang hanggang sa kasalukuyang edad. Pangalawa, pwede na rin na nagsasabi at naipagpaliwanag ang mga alituntunin sa silid-aralan at sa paaralan. Pwede na rin ito na isa-isa ang mga tungkulin ng isang mabuting mamamayan sa pangangalaga ng kapaligiran. So those are the learning outcomes of that objective. Another example, second example, educational objective is paglinang ng kakayahan na magsagawa ng proyektong pantahanan at pamamayanan. So this is now under psychomotor objective, to which the learning outcomes might be first, nakakasulat ng sanaysay na naglalarawan ng mga taong bumubuo ng sariling pamilya. Pangalawa, nakapagsasagawa ng mga panayam ng ilang mahahalagang pinuno ng sariling barangay at naisusulat ang mga nakalap na kaalaman. Pangatlong, or the third educational objective here is paganyak sa mga mag-aaral upang maipamalas ang malalim na pagpapahalaga sa kapaligiran. So, this is now the affective objective. The learning outcomes might be, first, nakasusulat ng tula, awit, o maikling kwento tungkol sa kahalagahan ng kapaligiran. O kaya, nakagagawa ng video presentation tungkol sa wastong pag-aalaga ng kapaligiran. So this is another example, it's an exercise with this educational objective, and this is for physical education subject. With these educational objectives, students improve gross motor functions by practicing rudimentary skills like hopping, skipping, stepping, walking, and running. So the learning outcomes here under cognitive domain, we have discussed the motor functions of the different movements of the body. Under the psychomotor, executed the proper way of body movements while playing. And the third is participated on the activities with enthusiasm. Those are all for the shift of educational focus from content to learning outcome.